talk about peer review and present you a few options you can use to engage in that process. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to share screens with you pretty much throughout this entire session. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the video with my face on it so that hopefully things will run a little bit more smoothly. I've been told when you have a kind of glitchy connection like I do, that it's a little bit easier or more secure if you stop the video feed. So I'm going to stop the video feed for now, but hopefully you can still hear my voice. I will share my screen. First of all, let's review. Last week, for sessions 8 and 9, you had writing for the self-assessment lesson. They were due by 11:59 Friday after the 18th. And I had to work fairly diligently this weekend to get everything done, but I was successful. However, there were a number of students who did not submit an essay. Now remember, back to the first week of class. I said that your papers would be accepted, but that they would only be accepted on a declining scale. So again, what that means essentially is that if you don't have the paper in right now, you still have time to get this assignment completed. But realize that starting at least from today, this is the Monday. So, right, it's, Friday night. So let's count Saturday as the first late day. All day Saturday is one day. All day Sunday is the second day. We're now into Monday. So you're probably not going to expect much better than a C at this point, but it's still a passing grade. So if you want to get the paper in for a C, you can certainly still do that without any other penalty. Additionally, when you revise, you can bump that score up from a C back to an A if you do a good job in the revision process. So keep that in mind and do not lose hope if you had trouble or difficulty submitting that paper in time. All right, back to my share screen for a moment. Okay, so that's the first thing that I wanted to talk to you about in terms of review. The other thing that I wanted to address in terms of review was the formatting of the papers themselves. I spent an hour of time downloading papers because many of you still submitted your papers as .pdf files or as .rtfs. Now, RTFs are easy. I just have to save them differently. PDF files, though, that's an extra step for me. So unless you have to use a PDF, please try to submit your documents as .txt or sorry, I said the wrong word, as .rtfs or rich text format or docx, .doc or .docx. Those are the best formats for me to use. PDFs, they're okay, but like I said, I spent an extra hour grading a lot of the papers for this class because so many of you submitted them as PDFs. I don't know if that's something that you're more comfortable with or more familiar with from another class, but for me, it's a big headache because I have to copy all that text out of PDF and paste it into a Word document. I'm essentially duplicating work that I shouldn't have to there. So just fair, not warning, so to speak. Please try to submit them in .doc or .docx. Now, what was this essay? Let's review real quickly. I'm going to share real quickly with you again. This is the last time I'm going to make you watch this. So again, here we are, college study skills self-assessment essay. So the focus here is again to compose an essay that predicts the potential differences between college and high school or secondary school. There are no wrong answers. However, in addition to differences you expect to discover, note any anxieties and or academic challenges you may feel represent obstacles in your path to success. When you do discuss the obstacles, try to include strategies that you plan to use in order to overcome those obstacles. 500 words or more, due again on the 18th. Now, everybody did a pretty good job with that. I don't think anybody missed the point of that particular activity based on the drafts that I've received thus far. Now, let's think about how we would revise these. And one more time, I know it was just up on the screen a second ago, but these drafts are due on the 25th. So you have this entire week to revise them, but it would behoove you to revise relatively quickly. Okay, so now I'm going to share today's peer review. Okay. Maybe I will. There it is. Let me make this a little larger for us. Okay. So this is your peer review, essay 1, the self-assessment. And as I suggest here, writing, both in college and in life, requires more than simply channeling your thoughts and feelings onto paper. As we are learning through our discussions, being a better writer means being involved in dynamic and multifaceted conversations about complex topics in the world around us. In order to be effective in this work, writers have to understand who they're talking to and what is likely to make for effective, compelling work in the opinion of that particular audience. Similarly, when we're offering feedback on another student's paper, we have to think not only about what we say, but how we say it. As you read and comment this week on your workshop partners paper, think about the kind of feedback that you would find most helpful. Keep in mind that it's important to let the writer know both what they have done well, in addition to those areas that could be improved in their essay. The questions that I've designed for you, and that we'll look at in just a few seconds, are here to help guide you. with respect to particular requirements for this essay assignment. In addition to that, I would just add that you may want to harness the power of the I feel description. So I feel is a good phrase because it's harder, or I should say it's more difficult to attack someone or to feel that someone is being overly judgmental if they present their analysis as a feeling, right? If you just think about a common occurrence that happens with a lot of college students, maybe you have a roommate that you don't get along with particularly well because they don't clean up their part of the apartment. You, instead of saying, I think you need to do more around here, or do more, or hold up your end of the fair share, or something like that. That's a very accusatory tone, and it's probably going to instigate an argument or a discussion. By contrast, if you use the term I feel, it invites conversation into the process. Hey, just want to tell you, I feel like I'm doing more of the cleaning in this dorm than you are. Is there something we can do to change that so it's a little bit more equal, where there's a little more equity in terms of the work that goes into maintaining our home? Starting with just the phrase I feel, like I said, can sort of soften the blow, especially for students who are a little bit adverse to criticism, or may even have some anxiety related feelings or emotions regarding their schoolwork. But let's go ahead now and focus on the questions themselves. What were the author's key strengths according to the essay? Try to name at least one important strength that they feel will help them in their transition from high school to college. What, if any, concerns did the author identify in the essay? There were a few students who make a good argument for the fact that they feel relatively secure in attending college. They feel like they're very well prepared, and that may well be the case. But if they did identify a concern, what were they? Or what were those concerns? Is there an effective hook that brings you in as a reader? Something that grabs your attention? Does the essay's format adhere to the assignment description? And remember, you can go back and review the assignment description parameters in the file found in Desire to Learn. Are there specifically multiple body paragraphs? And does the author use effective transitions when they move from one concept or idea to another? Is there a clear thesis? That's a big one, because without a clear thesis, your audience really isn't going to understand your purpose for writing. And this is a time and an opportunity to correct an oversight such as that, should that oversight be present in your writing. I think for most of you, though, I even underlined or highlighted, rather, a very good thesis example for most of the essays. So you shouldn't have to worry about this too much. Now, does the author need to use effective in-text quotations or parenthetical citations or works cited page citations? This is an easy question for all of you. This was not a requirement for this assignment, but I've used this forum and format for multiple different examples of peer review essays. So you can simply say, this assignment does not require any parenthetical or works cited page citations. Easy one for you. Okay. So again, I'm going to stop the video for a moment. You can see that mostly our task of reviewing the essay should be relatively painless, and it should have a very specific set of movements that you need to complete. But before you're interested in completing that, I think a lot of you are going to be very curious about how to access the feedback that I have provided as your instructor for this project. So to show you how to do this, I'm going to need to change the instructor to a student view. So bear with me as I do that in real time. Okay. I want to view this as a student. So now as a student, what I can do is go to the assignments link. So you should see a couple of different opportunities. You have the self-assessment essay with this blue hyperlink located here. And you can see your completion status. Now, for your completion status, instead of not submitted, you should see a file name presented here. You should then be able to see your score. And finally, the important part is the evaluation status. Here you should see another blue hyperlink called feedback. And if you select feedback, you will get to see a document, not unlike the one I'm going to display for you right here. Give me just 1 second here. Okay. So I want to go ahead and share with you one of these documents so you can see a couple of different things here. So this is a blank template from my other class, and it's a trailer that's for a game called Magic the Gathering Arena. And it's from my 3003 course. So it's an ad analysis, not quite the same paper, but that's okay. In fact, in some ways it's better because you can see this as a way to assess your material. The first thing that you'll notice is that in the comments section, you or the far margins of the paper, because this one's already open, you should see little dialogue balloons. Now clicking on these balloons reveals commentary that I've made. It could be something as basic as, hey, I like the title of your essay. Or it could be commenting on the thesis, which I've tried to outline in blue in most of the essays that I received. You'll also see a couple of words along the way, or maybe even entire phrases or sentences that have been highlighted in yellow. When they're highlighted in yellow, that's a suggested change as opposed to a necessary change. So sometimes I think a word might work better for you, but if you feel it is stripping away your authorial voice, I'll leave it up to you as to make a decision. Now, most students will hear that and they will just say, okay, yellow comments, I can just ignore, or I don't have to look at it. Try not to think of it in quite those terms if you can help it. I really do want you to reread the comments and consider your original versions as compared to my suggested changes. You may not always agree with me, but I think in certain instances, going back to review your own writing may help you. Some of you had a tough time with spelling and capitalization in particular. So I would make sure that you understand the changes that I've suggested in yellow. Now, you may also find, I don't have an example in this particular paper, but you may also find some text that's highlighted in green. So for example, I could change this one, this comma, into a green, oops, red. Correcting this on the fly, sorry folks. Into a green comment. So in this example, the sentence says, the video trailer shows characters within the universe of Magic the Gathering, representing players as they place cards onto their side of the arena, summoning monsters and casting spells. The presence of this word, ing, this is a gerund, and gerund phrases like this one tend to be set off by commas. Now, if a gerund or ing ending word begins a sentence, it's a lot easier to see that a comma should follow the phrase. In this sentence, though, it's a little curious because the writer has created a gerund phrase that's been tacked on to the front of the sentence, or the independent clause, the complete sentence. And as such, it needs a comma to signal to the reader the relative degree of importance attributed to each component in that sentence. So if we look at this example, the most important material is front-loaded. The video trailer shows characters. Subject, trailer, verb, shows, direct object, characters. The trailer shows characters. That's the core of the sentence, the most essential information. Everything that happens around that can define and clarify meaning. What kind of a trailer is it? Adjective, video. We use the article, the video trailer shows characters. Now we use a preposition to show space or time within the universe of, another preposition, Magic the Gathering. Now we have an even more complete idea. But we still have extra material that's set up by a phrase representing the players as they place their cards onto the side of the arena, summoning monsters and casting spells. So what we have is a gerund phrase followed by a series of prepositional phrases to that, again, are not a complete sentence, and as such can't stand by themselves, but also have to be explained as contributing or referencing back to the initial sentence. So you may see some green text in the bodies of your papers that also showcase these kinds of grammatical elements that you should address. So that is a big part of how to diagnose my personal feedback that you've received on your papers. Let's move on to our next phase. How do I respond to the weekly discussion questions? Let me share the screen one more time. Okay, that's not the one that I wanted to share, but that's all right. Try this again. Share a screen. There we are. Okay, so let's head over to our discussions for this week. Week 5. Can you believe it's already been 5 weeks? If we were in a typical high school class, week 9 would be the end of our first quarter, like right around Halloween time. So yeah, we're just about on track. Okay, so for our week 5 discussion questions, rather than this typical thing that I always create here, I have something new, and it should look familiar. It's the warm-up to the peer review questions. And that is your way, or that's your opportunity to present or answer your peer review questions for this week. This is option number 1. So if we go into the discussion topics, I want to highlight a couple of things for you. I'm in student view, so I'm seeing what you should see. So a couple of things that you can do. How do you get access to an essay? Right here. See this little paper clip on a page? You can click on this and you can, as a student, attach a file to your discussion post. So this is a really good way you can just to get this done. You can post your file to the post, and then someone can read it and respond to the appropriate questions, which you can see duplicated right here. So that's option 1. Option 2 is regarding the class list. Remember that class list is just an email, so you can find a fellow student here that you may have made a connection with, and you can select their email and send a copy of your paper to them, and hopefully they can even send a copy of their paper back to you. Then you can use the questions and respond accordingly. I should pause for 1 minute, I think, to ask a question. Ask a rhetorical question. Which version of the essay should you submit? Should you submit a version of the paper that looks like this, with Mr. Fowler's comments and writing on it? I don't know. Some students are very comfortable with that. Others, not so much. So you may want to submit a pristine version of your paper rather than the one that I have downloaded for you, or that you can download for me, that I've posted on Desire to Learn, in order to share your files. That way, it's nobody's business what your grade or evaluation might look like. Okay, so that's just about it. There is a third option. So your third option, okay, would be to, I'm going to bring the class list page back up. Your third option would be to simply respond to the questions in the discussion forum itself. So for example, I'm going to go back, and Tiana has posted early, so I can see her paper. Now she's already received her feedback from Mr. Fowler. So she could take that feedback that I have produced, and she could say, you know, I'm not exactly comfortable sharing my paper with another student, but since Mr. Fowler is a professor and I trust him, I feel like I can respond to how he has reflected upon my paper. So if you look at her post, she has posted a link to the Dropbox itself. So a student could just click on that, complete the activity, or you could take my commentary and respond to that material by answering the questions. So you'd have to do a little creative thinking here, but if you said, all right, according to Mr. Fowler, my chief concern in the essay was X, Y, and Z. Or he did note a particularly good hook. He liked my thesis and said it was clear or precise or distinct. I believe the format adheres to the original assignment description, and I have multiple body paragraphs, and I do use transitions most of the time throughout the body paragraphs. And of course, there were no works cited or parenthetical citations necessary for this assignment. So you have 3 ways that you could respond to peer review. You could post a link to your paper and wait for students to evaluate it. You could take my comment, or sorry, you could use the class list link. Number 2, reach out to a student that you have come to know through your discussion forum interactions. Maybe somebody you trust from another course, and just ask if they'd be willing to review your paper in exchange for reviewing your own. Lastly, you can contact Mr. Fowler and say, okay, I would just like to respond to your commentary in the discussion post. And this is what I believe his evaluation says in regard to my paper. 3 different ways, all appropriate. You have options for this week. Okay. I think that's it for today. Just a quick reminder for your assignment, chapters 9 and 10 this week in College Success Skills. I'll be uploading that PowerPoint and a video presentation for Wednesday morning, so you can take a look at that. And don't forget to add to your discussion forum posts. Okay, if you have questions, as always, contact me. And until next time, this is Mr. Fowler wishing you the best day. Take care, everyone.